The cold air cut into his lungs as Maxim walked along the narrow courtyard between the two buildings of the school. Behind him was the noisy hallway, where dozens of voices blended into a continuous hum. Here, however, it was quiet. It was a simple matter of walking to the side exit, crossing the road, and entering the store for water. 15 steps to the door, 40 more to the crosswalk, and that was it. Easy. But even before he turned the corner, he already knew they were waiting for him there. Maxim didn't have any supernatural abilities, but years of life had taught him to notice details. To notice the looks that linger on you a little longer than usual. To notice the pauses in conversations when you walk by. Noticing when people are waiting for you. When he came around the corner, 3 guys were already standing there. "Oh, that's our silent one." Grinned at the first one, grinning at the others. Maxim didn't answer, just kept walking. The second step, the third. On the 5th, one of them swung forward, blocking the way. Well, what's your hurry? We just wanted to talk." Maxim knew that conversation was the last thing they wanted. He stopped. A tall guy with a short haircut, the head of their company, squinted, tilting his head to the side. "Why don't you say anything? We're thinking. What are you? Just a newcomer? Or are you hiding something?" The other, thin, with a scar on his chin, grinned. Maybe he doesn't know how to talk, or he's afraid to. They laughed. Maxim said nothing. He only raised his eyes and looked at the one who stood closest to him. The guy suddenly stopped talking, as if he'd stammered, and then jerked his shoulder irritably. All right, since he was so tedious, let him go. Maxim didn't move. "Why are you standing up?" The tall one asked more roughly. Maxim still didn't answer. Silence hung between them. It lasted only a couple of seconds, but it was enough. The tall one felt uncomfortable. Scar looked at him in anticipation. One more second. Maxim took a step forward. The one blocking the way unknowingly backed away. Maxim walked calmly between them, as if they didn't exist at all. Behind him came the sound. "Fucking hell. What a weirdo he is." Maxim smiled, but didn't turn around. The school day was coming to an end. Maxim sat by the window, leaning over his notebook. He heard voices around him, but he didn't listen to them. A notification flashed in his phone pocket. "Where are you?" He answered briefly. "I'm fine." There were no other messages. Maxim looked out the window. He saw the tall buildings forming strict lines against the gray sky. He saw cars passing by. He saw school children coming out of the gates. And among them, 3 boys he knew. He knew this was not the end. The next day, he did what he had to do. He didn't avoid them. He didn't defiantly walk away, or look away, or change his usual route. That got them worried. By noon, rumors had already spread through the school. Some knew Maxim's last name. Some knew more. And when one of the boys, the one with the scar, received a strange message, it was clear the game had changed. They'd chosen victim, but now the victim was watching them. Now they realized the mistake had already been made. Maxim knew it wouldn't end there. People like them never settle down after the first time, especially if they feel like they've been ignored. But now the rules had changed. The school started whispering. No one knew for sure, but rumors spread fast. Some said his father was an important man. Some claimed he was involved with dangerous people. But most importantly, it was affecting those who tried to hurt him. Scar was the first to feel alarmed. At recess, he pulled out his phone and saw a strange message from an unknown number. "Your parents live on Sovetskaya Street, right?" His fingers became clammy as he tried to answer. "Who are you?" But there was no answer. Scar looked up and spotted Maxim at the far end of the hallway. He was just standing there, calm, unperturbed, and suddenly it was hard to breathe. Maxim was never in a hurry. He knew that fear was much stronger than fists. Blows heal, but what sits in your head stays forever. Ryan, tall and cocky, could feel the tension in the air, but he didn't want to show it in front of his friends. Screw it. He threw in when Scar told him about the message. It was a dumb joke, but something inside was gnawing at him. The next day, he saw his father talking to some stranger outside the car. Both were serious, and there was tension in their postures. That evening, sitting down to dinner, Ryan heard his father say a strange phrase. "You haven't had a fight with anyone lately?" Ryan swallowed, but shook his head. His father looked at him intently. then shifted his gaze to his plate. Be careful. For the first time in his life, Ryan felt like he wasn't in charge of this game. Maxim wasn't even looking in his direction, but Ryan was already afraid. A week passed. Maxim hasn't changed a single habit. The same routes, the same quiet lunches, the same invisible stares. But now, as he walked down the hallway, Ryan and his friends averted their eyes. The silence worked better for him than any words. He didn't need to make threats. They were figuring out what they needed to on their own. Fear was a weapon, and Maxim knew how to use it. Maxim wasn't looking for a meeting, but he wasn't avoiding it either. Now, when he passed by, none of the trio even tried to say anything to him. But he knew this wasn't the end of it. People like them always either retaliate or disappear. That evening, as he was leaving school, his cell phone vibrated in his pocket. There's a surprise waiting for you after school today. The number was unknown, but Maxim had no doubt who had sent the message. He paused for a moment, then continued walking, quietly tucking the phone into his pocket. They want to play a game? Good. He knew the rules. Part 7, it was dark outside the school. The lamps illuminated the sidewalks with yellow light, casting long shadows on the ground. Maxim crossed the courtyard without changing speed. On his way out from around the corner, 3 men appeared, but they were not the only ones. This time, there were 5 of them. The 2 new ones were high school students who looked much more dangerous. Ryan stepped forward, his confidence returning. What's up, Silent? You think sitting on the sidelines won't get you hurt? Maxim didn't answer, only bowed his head slightly, as if assessing them. He noticed the tension in Scar's shoulders, noticed one of the new ones looking back. They want to scare him with numbers, but they're not sure of the outcome. We were thinking, Ryan continued, maybe it's time you learned what happens to people who think they're smarter than others. Maxim took a step forward. 1, 2, stop. One of the new ones said sharply, you're not as tough as you think you are. Maxim did not stop. 3rd step. 4th. Scar swore under his breath. Ryan clenched his fists. Maxim could see their fragile confidence cracking. 5th step. Suddenly someone shouted loudly, hey, what's going on here? The light from the flashlight fell on a school security guard who stepped out of the building. Maxim didn't wait for the trio to recover from the surprise. He calmly turned around and walked away without looking back. Part 8, something had changed after that evening. Ryan no longer tried to take the initiative. Scar avoided meetings. The 2 older men didn't show up around them anymore. And then the rumors started. Some said that same evening, unknown men approached Ryan outside his house and said something that made him go pale. Someone claimed that Scar had asked someone to find out about Maxim, but had burned his phone after talking to someone strange. Maxim didn't know which rumors were true, but he knew that the outcome had been accomplished. The next week, Ryan transferred to another school. Maxim watched him walk out the gate for the last time. Only then did he allow himself to smile. Several days passed, but the stranger did not take any action. He just appeared wherever Maxim was, in the corridor, near the canteen, in the schoolyard. Their gazes met a couple times, but the boy never took his eyes off first. The other students noticed him too. He was an outsider, but not like Maxim. There was more than a sense of restraint about him, more like calculating. At recess, Maxim made the first move. He approached him, sat down at a neighboring table, and asked quietly, "Are you looking for me?" The boy slowly raised his eyes, as if he had been waiting for this question. The corners of his lips trembled in a slight, almost imperceptible smirk. "You could say that. You're an interesting man, Maxim. Who sent you?" "No one. I'm just observing." Maxim studied him with his gaze. It wasn't fear. It wasn't a threat. It was interest. "Pure, unintended. You shouldn't play these games," Maxim said quietly. "Oh, but that's what you do, isn't it?" Silence hung between them. Maxim stood up without answering. But now he knew the game was really going on. The next day, the stranger was around again. But this time he didn't just stare. He said something to Ryan before he transferred to another school. Maxim had learned this from a bystander. And if Ryan had been afraid before, now he was just broken. Who is this guy? How did he know about Maxim? One evening, Maxim's phone vibrated. The message was from an unknown number. You're not the only one. Maxim clutched the phone in his hand. It wasn't a call, not a threat. It was an invitation.